You are worst at the thing you feel most confident about. Not all the time, but more often than you'd like to admit. Think about the last time you were completely sure you were right about something you barely understood. A political argument, a diagnosis you looked up online, a skill you'd only just started learning. You felt certain. Not a little certain, completely certain. And here's the strange part. The less you actually knew, the more certain you felt. This happens to almost everyone. You are not the exception. Your brain is not built to notice its own blind spots, and that's exactly the problem. Picture someone learning to play guitar for the first time. After 2 weeks, they can play a few chords. They feel amazing. They think, "This isn't so hard. I'll probably be performing live within a year." They have no idea how much they don't know yet. They can't see the mountain because they're standing at the very bottom of it, convinced they're already near the top. Now picture a professional guitarist with 20 years of experience. Ask them how good they are. They'll probably hesitate. They'll mention everything they still can't do. They know exactly how deep this skill goes, and that knowledge makes them cautious about their own abilities. This gap has a name. It's called the Dunning-Kruger Effect. In 1999, psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger ran a study at Cornell University. They tested people on logic, grammar, and humor, then asked each person to guess how well they'd done. The people who scored the lowest weren't just wrong about their performance, they were the most confident of anyone in the room. Meanwhile, the top performers often guessed they'd done worse than they actually had. Why does this happen? Because the skill required to do something well is often the same skill required to judge how well you're doing it. If you don't understand a subject, you also don't have the tools to recognize your own mistakes. It's not stupidity. It's a blind spot built into the structure of learning itself. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman, who spent decades studying how the mind makes decisions, described this kind of overconfidence as one of the most stubborn biases we carry, because it feels like clarity from the inside. You don't experience it as ignorance, you experience it as understanding. Researcher Philip Tetlock found something similar when he studied political experts making predictions. The ones who spoke with the most bold, confident certainty were often the least accurate. The ones who hedged, who said things like, "It depends," or "I could be wrong," tended to be right more often. Confidence and competence don't always travel together. Sometimes they move in opposite directions entirely. Here's where it gets stranger. As you actually get better at something, your confidence often drops before it rises again. Psychologists call this the valley of despair. You learn just enough to see how much you don't know, and that awareness feels like failure, even though it's actually progress. The guitarist who's practiced for 6 months and suddenly feels worse than the beginner version of themselves isn't getting worse. They're finally seeing clearly. So what do you do with this? The next time you feel completely certain about something you just learned, pause. Ask yourself a simple question. What would someone who's spent 20 years on this say about what I just said? Not to shut yourself down, but to stay curious a little longer before locking in your certainty. Confidence isn't the enemy. Blind confidence is. The goal isn't to doubt yourself constantly. It's to remember that feeling sure and being right are two completely different things, and your brain will often hand you the first one without earning the second. You are worst at the thing you feel most confident about more often than you'd like to admit. But now you know why, and that alone puts you a little further up the mountain than you were 5 minutes ago. If this